This summer, I'll be traveling to Vienna and London,
Kampala, Uganda,
all over the East Coast,
South Africa,
Kyrgyzstan,
studying political organization in the Irish and Jewish American communities.
Collectively produced art in punk communities.
John Quincy Adams Ambassadorship to Europe,
the implementation of the affirmative action policy for women in politics.
The very most important thing about research is that you have to find something that you actually care about, which sounds totally obvious, but in fact isn't.
There's something personal behind every research project, no matter how formal it might seem, no matter how rigorously constructed it is, no matter how large or small it is.
I had a colleague years ago that used to always ask people when they were presenting something from their research, what in your gut really turned you on about this?
It wasn't a research project for a long time. It was a personal quest. It was something that I felt strongly motivated to try to figure out about my life.
And so there's, in a sense, this process of figuring out what your own stake is. And then from that, I think you go off and read what other people have written, learn about what the debates have been from following up footnotes and seeing who has been arguing about what.
It's probably best to start with what other people thought about that idea rather than doing it by yourself. Why not use the help of the generations if you can get it? Don't reinvent the wheel.
Go on your hunches about the kinds of questions that have been asked in the past and the sorts of questions that have been ignored.
That doesn't mean it's, oh, they've answered it, I can't do anything about it. No, there still may be new situations, a different context, and additional questions that you can pose about it, but at least you have a good foundation to begin from.
So see, what kinds of answers did people give to this kind of question? Are those good answers? What kind of reasons did they give to this kind of question? What kind of connections did they make between the question that you asked and other questions?
The process of narrowing it down is one of defining a specific question that is answerable.
Steer away from, in a sense, the questions that have absorbed all of the attention and figure out the questions that you think people really need to ask.
So you start with a question, you come up with an answer, you get dissatisfied with the answer, you realize you have to be more careful, you become more careful, that leads to other questions, still other answers. Before you realize it, you're narrowing down, you're making much smaller claims than you originally were making.
Sources turn up in amazing, wonderful ways. And as any scholar will attest, the sorts of things that you can learn in the course of your research are infinitely better than what you can make up yourself.
I love to tell my students, the world is filled with data. Data is not the problem.
Seek out sources that people haven't used and be dogged about that. Write letters, bang on people's doors. Really don't take no for an answer. You can get access to the most extraordinary sorts of sources.
If it's a research project, there needs to be something other than just you involved, because it's apt to be a combined effort.
The idea, though, is to think outside the box, is to entertain the possibility there may be other people outside your discipline, other literatures outside the narrow literature that you're looking at. And it might be interesting to explore how have they approached this question.
Research is about creating knowledge, ultimately, and there's nothing that's more fantastic.
Philosophical research does not take deep insight and brilliance. If it did, I wouldn't have succeeded. What it takes is perseverance, hard work, and a sense of a question that you really are burning to answer.
There are lots of different stories we tell about why we're doing a project. There's the kind of story we tell in order to get a grant for it. There's the kind of story we'll tell in an advising situation or with a mentor to say, well, this is how I think it works, but you're not held to it because you're just talking it through. Then there's a story that is in many ways just as real as the others, which is this deep personal thing about why this for me now.
The great thing is to realize at the end of it, you began with an idea, you began with an interest, and here you've got a product. And that product is something that's yours, and it's your identity's on it, and it's a product that you can show the world now.
To study multiculturalism as it relates to music programs in the suburbs.
China's relationship with developing countries.
How kids acquire language.
Characterizing molecular membranes from molecules I make in lab.
How music affects the brain in older adults.